From the White House in the office of the President of the United States, we present an address by Dwight D. Eisenhower.
I feel impelled to speak today in a language that in a sense is new, one which I, who have spent so much of my life in the military profession, would have preferred not to use. That new language is the language of atomic warfare.
I know that the American people share my deep belief that if a danger exists in the world, it is a danger shared by all. And equally, that if hope exists in the mind of one nation, that hope should be shared by all.
"An Atoms for Peace" was the name of a speech delivered by former U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower on December of 1953. He created it with the purpose to promote and oversee the peaceful use of nuclear technology. The U.S. then launched an Atoms for Peace program. The International Atomic Energy, IAEA, came into existence. In 1961, 8 years later, the leaders of the Soviet Union, led by Russian Communist Nikita Khrushchev, and the U.S. led by John F. Kennedy, were standing nose-to-nose with each other after a U-2 spy plane photographed a series of launch sites for medium-range ballistic missiles being constructed on the island of Cuba, just off the coast of the southern United States. This was known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. On October 26, Khrushchev sent a message to Kennedy offering to withdraw all missiles if Kennedy committed to a policy of no future invasions of Cuba. "You and I should not now pull on the ends of the rope in which you have tied a knot of war, because the harder you and I pull, the tighter the knot will become. And the time may come when this knot is tied so tight that the person who tied it is no longer feeling capable of untying it, and then the knot will have to be cut. What that would mean I need not to explain to you, because you yourself understand perfectly what dreaded forces our two countries possess." Resolution 1665, which calls for negotiations to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons to additional states, was unanimously approved by the UN General Assembly, a triumph of negotiation to stop the tragic consequences of atomic weapon usage. In 1963, President John Kennedy warns, "I see the possibilities in the 1970s of the President of the United States having to face a world in which 15 or 20 or 25 nations may have nuclear weapons. I regard that as the greatest possible danger and hazard." In 1965, both the American and Soviet governments submitted draft non-proliferation treaties to the General Assembly, with the desire to limit the spread of nuclear weapons rather than the process of complete nuclear disarmament. The Non-Proliferation Treaty, also known as NPT, focuses on the three pillars: non-proliferation, disarmament, and the right to develop nuclear energy. The treaty recognizes 5 nuclear weapon states: China, France, Russia, the UK, and the USA, which pledge to not transfer nuclear weapons to any non-nuclear state or support them in getting them in any way. All others are non-nuclear states and pledge to not acquire nuclear weapons. This part of the treaty is known as the non-proliferation pillar. The second pillar is surrounding disarmament, where all parties pledge to take measures towards disarmament. The third pillar gives all states the right to develop nuclear energy. This pillar also caused some opposition, as it clearly showed the imbalance of nuclear power between the nations. It states that non-nuclear nations would remain non-nuclear, while the others were able to hold on to their nuclear weapons for the time being. The NPT came into full force in 1970. The goal of the treaty is global disarmament, although it does not mention a means of doing so. On November 20th, 1983, the horrific sound of air raid sirens wailing and catastrophic images of nuclear bombs demolishing homes, farms, and cities crossed TV screens worldwide, and over 39 million households watch in terror. The Day After is an American film that depicts a fictional war where nuclear warfare exchanged between NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization forces, and the Warsaw Pact, which was made up of 7 countries including the Soviet Union, Albania, Poland, Romania, Hungary, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Bulgaria. A panel of discussion was held after the premiere of the film.
If you can, take a quick look out the window. It's all still there. Your neighborhood is still there, so is Kansas City, and Lawrence, and Chicago, and Moscow, and San Diego, and Vladivostok.
Although the war in the film was fictional, the safety of our world was in jeopardy. due to the relationship between the United States and the Soviet Union being so fragile. The movie is not far from the truth, as in real life, the 1980s was dominated by the Cold War between those two powerhouses. As tension grew between the rivals, so did the fear of the people. The world held its breath during the first few years of the decade. The effects of this film didn't just stop in the homes of those who watched, but it impacted our then President Ronald Reagan so much that he knew he had to take action and make a change. Reagan was able to watch the movie before it premiered for the world, and in his diary he mentions the film in 2 separate entries. It's very effective and left me greatly depressed. And he goes on to say, "My own reaction was when I were having to do all we can to have a deterrent and to see there's never a nuclear war." The separate entry mentions how the Secretary of State was to address this film on national television. George Shultz is going on ABC right after its big nuclear bomb film Sunday night. We know it's anti-nuke propaganda, but we're going to take it over and say it shows why we must keep on doing what we're doing.
We should be trying to reduce the numbers of these weapons. Of course, to do so means that we have to persuade the Soviet Union to come down along with us. And hopefully, what we would shoot for, as the president again said in Tokyo, his dream is to reduce down to 0.
The United Nations designated the 1970s as the first disarmament decade, but good intentions were not enough.
America has no territorial ambitions. We occupy no countries, and we have built no walls to lock our people in. Our commitment to self-determination, freedom, and peace is the very soul of America. That commitment is as strong today as it ever was. The United States has fought 4 wars in my lifetime. In each, we struggled to defend freedom and democracy. We were never the aggressors. America's strength and, yes, her military power have been a force for peace, not conquest, for democracy, not despotism, for freedom, not tyranny.
Today's fears were not of the Cold War, but of North Korea and their supreme leader Kim Jong-un, as they withdrew from the NPT in 2003 and has conducted increasingly sophisticated nuclear tests.
Raising the stakes once again, North Korea's supreme leader has hit back at Donald Trump. A short while later, North Korea's foreign minister explained that could mean a hydrogen bomb test somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. It was this speech on Tuesday that prompted Kim's fiery response.
But if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
With back and forth insults between Kim Jong-un and our President Donald Trump, their war of words continued. The nations watched.
Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. Kim Jong-un's message also told Mr. Trump to choose his words more carefully in the future. The world has to hope both men heed that advice.
Today, the IAEA assesses that nearly 30 states are capable of developing nuclear weapons, but only 9 states are known to possess them. In March of 2018, South Korean officials announced that Kim Jong-un was committed to denuclearization, would refrain from any further nuclear missile tests, and wished to meet Donald Trump. On June 12, 2018, the 2 leaders met in Singapore, the first in-person meeting ever between the 2 nations in history. At the summit, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea pledged to work toward complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. In the final stages of World War II in 1945, the U.S. bombed the cities of Japan, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki. In an instant, 80,000 people died. These are the only uses of nuclear weapons in war to date. The results of a nuclear war are unimaginable and would be tragic indeed. The NPT of 1961 is a triumph of thought and a tool to promote a peaceful world, which requires the commitment of all states. The treaty is in a constant state of flux, due to advancements in technology and changes in leadership. It's undeniably tragic how these advancements are weaponized, resulting in absolute fear. Any state concerned about dangers from the use of nuclear weapons should be doing everything in its power to strengthen the NPT. The widespread acceptance of the NPT worldwide is making it an important element in the new world order. It brings us one step closer towards world peace, and in my opinion, that makes each step triumphant.